Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Whitaker. I'm an investigator with the Department of Commerce Manufactured Home Program. I'm going to give a presentation today regarding the installation of manufactured housing in the state of Ohio. What we're going to touch on is some topics. The main topic is going to be on what I am seeing in the field when it comes to the installation of homes and what the issues or the problems that I'm seeing when I visit these homes. So I wanted to take this time to go over these subjects with you so that we could all better understand them and, how to, in the future, make sure that we're not having these same problems. Hopefully I explain them to you, you understand them, and that we all move in one direction and making sure that when we do install these homes for the folks that buy them, that they are set to Ohio standards. If it's a used home, if it's a new home, making sure that it's set to the instruction manual that comes with the home, or you can also use an engineered drawing to set up a new or a used home. So with that being the case, again, my name's Gary Whitaker. Some of you may know me on some of the other classes in the past that I have taught and discussed a lot of these same topics that we're going to discuss today. A little bit about me. I've been in the industry, the manufactured home industry, for about 25 years now. I started in the industry with on the financing side. I worked for the nation's largest bank called Green Tree, who financed manufactured housing. So I was with them for quite some time. I ended up becoming a manufactured home community owner, owned my own community, had it for some time, ended up selling that. And after selling that is when I came to the state of Ohio. Wanted to come to the state of Ohio for a few different reasons. One of them is we had the new standards that we had put in place when it comes to installing manufactured homes. And just because I had been in the business as long as I have, known a lot of the people that were already in the industry, I thought I could lead, lead us into the future as far as education and making sure that everybody understood what those standards are, how we can meet them, affordably, so that we all can install homes that we can be proud of, and our homeowners, who buy manufactured housing, are taken care of and live in nice, clean, safe homes. Okay. What we're going to talk about is some issues, like I mentioned, that I've seen in the field that are issues that are avoidable, issues that don't take a lot of money to get correct. If we all work together, we'll make sure that the issues I talk about won't be a problem. Okay, so with that being said, I wanted to say a few other things. Make sure if you do have any questions, make sure you get those questions to the appropriate person. The people that put on this entire class will let you know who that appropriate person is. You get those questions to them, they will get them to us, and we 100% will make sure that you get the answer to your question. Okay, so what I do on the investigative part of my job with the state of Ohio is I make sure I go out after these homes have been set up and finalized with a final inspection, and we do what we call an audit. Okay, an audit is basically making sure that I go around and make sure that everybody that was involved in the process of the installation of the home has done their job correctly. Okay, from the installer installing the home correctly with whatever all components come into play with that, be it a single wide or a double wide, hinge roof on a double wide, not hinge roof, a lot of variables. I will make sure I do an audit on all these components to make sure that they meet either A, the Ohio standards that we set forth in our code, which is Ohio Revised Code 4781, the actual administrative code for the Ohio standards for installation is OAC 4781-6. 4781-6 has all the installation code for the state of Ohio. And if it's a new home, I make sure that that home was set to the installation manual that was given by the manufacturer for that home. So when I'm at the audit, these are all the components I look for, okay? I don't go for one specific reason when I'm doing an audit. I go there to look at everything, okay? Be it footers, piers, anchoring, vapor barrier, skirting, ventilation, plumbing, okay? Make sure we look at everything and make sure that if there is any issues or any problems, that we catch them. Because when I go out on these audits, I make sure that I go out there and I see them pretty recently after they were finalized, so that, we don't want to leave something, lingering, so to speak. So if I'm out there, let's say a month after a home was finalized, okay, had the seal put in it, final inspected, passed, obviously, then what I want to do is be there as soon as I possibly can, let's say in this case 30 days, so that if there is an issue, it's not something that is getting worse and worse over time, that we could catch that issue. And at that point, I would get back with the inspector of the home, the installer of the home, and we would all come together, make sure we put a game plan together on remedying and taking care of whatever the issues may be. Okay, so with that being said, what we're going to do is we're going to move into a slideshow. In that slideshow will be pictures and a presentation of the things that I have seen in the field, and we will discuss them at length. Okay, everybody, what we're going to do now is we're going to go through a slideshow. In this slideshow, it's just basically going to show some of the issues that I've seen out in the field with actual pictures. And we'll go through every picture. I'll explain, why it's an issue, so that you understand that these are the problems that we see, so you can make sure that, you yourself doesn't fall into these practices or these issues that I show you. So give me a second here. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. And what's going to happen here is I'm going to pull up the slideshow, and I'm going to disappear, but you'll be able to see the slideshow and you'll be able to hear my voice. So once the slideshow comes up, I'm going to go through each slide and you'll be hearing me discuss each slide and talking about it. So that way, when I disappear, don't fear that, oh, it's over or anything. You'll hear me talking as we go through the slideshow, okay? So let me pull that up now. Okay, so the first thing is, these are the common manufactured home installation issues that I see in the field. Obviously, my name's Gary Whitaker. I've let you know that a couple of times. These pictures that you will see and the information from them are all given by me. I didn't have somebody else go out and take these pictures or look. Everything that you will see on this slideshow came straight from me, which means it gives you a little bit of comfort to know that, well, somebody else wasn't out there. Maybe it wasn't, the way the picture looks. Because we all know there was an old saying when I was at the bank, when we financed these, the manufactured homes, was you can't stand on a picture or you can't smell a picture. Okay. And, that was 25 years ago. So, and it's always resonated with me. So just be assured that when you see these pictures, it was actually myself that took these pictures and relaying back to you what I seen and what the problems are. okay? Because I do know and understand that when we're talking pictures, angles, lighting, some things may optical illusion type of thing, okay? But I just want to assure you that that's obviously not what's going on here. These pictures, these audits were done by me, and I'm the one that's giving the presentation, so you can be assured that everything you see here today is completely legitimate of what's going on out in the field when we see some of the issues that we're seeing. Okay. Okay, the first topic we're going to discuss is anchoring. Okay, I discussed already previously. We all know there's different types of anchors. Okay, we understand, and hopefully you do understand. If not, if you're a new installer, every single wide in the state of Ohio, when it's installed, has to be installed with at least 4-corner straps and auger style anchors on each corner. Okay, obviously 4 corners each corner. Now, most installers, and when I say most installers, it's a very, very high percentage. I don't want to give a number because I don't know specifically what it is, but most installers will use the tie-down system, the lateral bar, and then use the 4-corner anchors, okay, the straps and the augers. Now, you may say, Gary, I understand that, but don't we still have the right under the code, under 4781-6, which is the Ohio Administrative Code for the installation standards for the state of Ohio, don't we have the right to use auger style strapping all the way around the home? And you do, absolutely. So if you don't want to use the tie down systems, meaning the lateral bars, and you want to put the augers and the straps down each side, you absolutely have that right to do that. It will meet state code. As long as they're installed correctly and the distances are adhered to. But yes, as long as you follow those guidelines, then you still can use the straps and the auger style anchors down each side, okay? Not just the 4 corners, okay? But the minimum, which is the tie down system, okay, the lateral bar on the front and the back of the home, and then the 4-corner anchors. All right, so that now that we understand that we can use different types of anchoring and still pass, the Ohio Administrative Installation Code, I want to go through some of these pictures and show you some of the things that I've seen. Okay, the first one here you will see is a strap and an auger style anchor into the ground. It's not into the concrete, it's actually into the soil. And as you can see in this picture, the anchor head is at least 4 inches above the ground. Okay, so when it comes to anchoring, what we tell you in 4781-6, the installation code, is that you must anchor and tie down every home, okay? Well, in doing that, you must follow the guidelines and the instructions of the anchoring manufacturer, okay? The state of Ohio does not build straps and anchors. So we don't give you, we do talk, if you read 4781-6 and go to the anchoring section, you will see, sizes, how thick the strap has to be, things to that nature. But we don't, as, the state of Ohio does not sell anchoring of any type. So you're going to buy your anchoring from the manufacturer. So when you buy that anchoring from the manufacturer, in that, with the product, you will find an instruction manual. you take that instruction manual and you adhere to that instruction manual, okay? We just want to make sure that there's no problems that, and I will say this more than 3 times through this presentation. We want to make sure 100% that there is never an issue that may come up where a manufacturer of any product that you may use holds you responsible for a failure, okay? And that's why this is so important, okay? It's so important because if, like we're looking at in this picture, this anchor, if you install them to the exact way that the instruction manual from the manufacturer of that anchor told you to, and then let's say 6 months down the line, we get some straight line winds, okay? It is Ohio, it's been known to happen, the straight line winds. So let's say we get these straight line winds, and let's say it's not devastating. We don't, I'm not going to use worst case scenarios here. But let's say we get these straight line winds and the home shifts, okay? Doesn't flip over, nothing to that extent, but let's just say it shifts. Well, because of the shifting, let's say a couple of piers give way, okay? Now, what I mean by give way is if the I-beam now is on, let's say half the I-beam is off of the pier and half of it is on it because of this shifting. Eventually, the way these piers are supposed to support the home on the I-beam and the amount of weight, the load bearing that's supposed to be on them, well, the blocks of your piers were meant to have the load bearing completely in the center, okay? But now, because of the shifting of these straight line winds, now half the pier is on the block and half the pier is not. Well, now the block has all this weight bearing or load bearing on, let's say, 4 inches of the block. Well, eventually, anybody that knows physics, eventually that block is going to give way, okay? So let's say it does. Let's say the back 2 piers gave way. Well, now the fear is, are any more piers going to give way because the load bearing that was on those 2 piers are now going to be on all the other piers, okay? You basically move that weight that was loaded on top of those 2 piers are now going to be on the other piers. So let's say it's an older home, it's lighter, and none of the other piers give way, okay? But just 2 of them. Well, because of that, let's say there's sagging in the back of the home, all right? Well, we know that we installed these anchoring system, the strap and the anchor itself into the ground correctly. We followed all the guidelines from the manufacturer, whoever that may be. Okay, the homeowner obviously is going to pick up the phone. They're going to call in. Call's going to come to us here at the state, and they're going to say, look, I had my home set and installed. I was perfectly happy. Well done to everybody, but we had these winds. Here's the situation. 2 piers in the back have failed. Home is shifted. I need somebody to come look at it. Now, at that point in the process, we have to determine where the failure was at, okay? So if I come to you as the installer and say, hey, we got an issue with this home, I explain everything to you, what happened, and your response to me is, Gary, I installed that anchoring on that home 100% to the installation standards of the manufacturer. I talked to the installer or the inspector. He says the same thing, backs up what you told me. Then obviously the next process is to have the actual representative from the manufacturing rep or manufacturing company who made the anchor come out and look at it. So if you did everything you were supposed to do, you followed the instruction manual from the anchor manufacturer to the T, 100%, and that anchor fails for whatever reason, then the anchor manufacturer is going to have to stand behind their product, right? So they're going to have to look at this product, talk to us, talk to you, talk to the homeowner, and give us an answer of why we are in the situation that we are. The reason I bring all that up with this anchor head that we see in this picture is it would never get to that point, because we all know that an anchor head left out of the ground like this will start to pull, okay, and start slicing through the ground, especially if there is no stabilizing plate installed in front of it, which in this case there is one underneath of the vapor barrier. But a manufacturing rep, if they got called in on this picture, on this situation, they would see remnants or evidence that the head of the anchor was out of the ground at a distance, 4 inches, 5 inches, 3 inches, whatever it may be. Therefore, the manufacturing rep would tell me, you, the homeowner, that the manufacturer has nothing to do with what has now happened under the scenario that I've given you with this anchor head failing, or this anchoring system failing. And they would be right, because they would always point back to their instructions that comes with the product, which tells you exactly how to install this anchor and make it work the way it was engineered to work. Okay, so long story short, I know that was kind of long, but I just want to make sure everyone understands why this is so important. Okay, obviously the number one reason why it's important is the safety and welfare of the citizen who lives in the home, okay, the homeowner. After that, as an installer, you want to make sure that if any problems come up, that I protect myself, that I ensure myself that I have done everything to the letter of the installation instructions that came with that product. And if you do that, and then something happens and there's a failure, then you have an insurance policy, because you can look at everybody involved and say, I installed that 100% to the instruction manual that came with that product. And if that's the case, then the manufacturing company that made that anchor will have to step in and resolve the issue, okay? I just want to make sure that we are all on the same page and understand that if you leave an anchor like this that we're looking at in this picture and something happens, you as the installer and as the inspector who finalized this home will be responsible for whatever happens, because this picture shows an anchor that was not installed to the installation manual that came with that anchor. Okay, so I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, why this is so important, why it's always important that we follow the instruction manual that comes with the product. Okay, another anchor strap. The picture that I am showing here, and what I want you to notice, is the amount of turns that is on the strap itself. Okay, so the manufacturing companies of these anchors will give you in the installation instructions how many turns they want you to make when you're putting in the anchor. So If they say, hey, we want you to do it 4 or 5 times, 4 or 5 turns, 6 or 7 turns, which I don't know if I've ever heard of 6 or 7 turns, just doing it as an example, okay? You have to follow, again, the story that I just gave you, or example I just gave you, is another reason why this is so important. So if I look at a strap like this and I see that it's only had 1 turn, you know, you get to the point when you're in my shoes where you don't understand the process, okay, of either picture. Why didn't you drive it? Now, they could have hit some rock, okay, I understand that, but we all have hard jobs, correct? So our job being hard is not a reason not to do it the right way, okay? The turning of the strap doesn't jive with maybe the first picture we looked at where the anchor head's that far out of the ground, okay? Again, the anchor head that far out of the ground may be as simple as, you know, we ran into some stone or rock underneath, we couldn't get it any further. Well, if that's the case, then, you know, find a bigger tool or a more powerful tool to try to torque it into the ground, or move it. Maybe try moving. I mean, there's different options that you can do with that, okay, with the anchor sticking out of the ground that much. The second picture here, now that we're looking at it, I don't understand the reasoning of why there would only be 1 turn, okay? Because we all know you bring your strap through the bolt and you're supposed to go 12 inches and bring it back and you start tightening it and, you know, clean it up, make sure you're done. The problem with the 1 turn is I don't understand why there's only 1 turn, okay? You know, I can give you reasons of why I think there's only 1 turn. I don't think it does us any good to talk about, you know, what those reasons may be without actually knowing those reasons. But the biggest reason I wanted to show this picture is it has 1 turn on the strap, no manufacturer, okay? And I will repeat this, no manufacturer of these types of products are going to have in their installation instructions that you only do or accomplish 1 turn. None. 0. Okay. There's going to be at least 3 or 4, 5, 6 turns. Has to be. The manufacturer of that product will tell you that in the installation manual. Okay. So just make sure that when you're doing the anchors, that we also look at not only that it's sticking out of the ground, that it's flush with the ground, okay, all the way to grade to the soil, but we also are getting the proper and correct amount of turns on the slip bolt so that that won't give way, okay? Because the biggest reason why they want 4, 5 turns is they don't want that slipping out of there, okay? The more turns that you make, the better grip and the better hold that that's going to have. The least or less amount of turns gives it more of an opportunity to slip. And as we were just discussing with straight line winds, or God forbid, a tornado, you know, neither one of these anchors are going to hold up. You know, one's going to slice through the ground and give way, and the other one's going to slip because there's only 1 turn. Okay. So we'll move on to the next picture. Next picture is the zip cap. Now, there is no zip cap manufacturer for tie downs out there that will not tell you that the zip cap must be flush into the ground. Okay. As you can see in this picture, you could walk over and stick your foot and stand on the vapor barrier and have your foot in between the vapor barrier and the top of that zip cap. Yeah, heck, you could even put probably most of your foot underneath the back end of the zip cap and the ground. So it's another installation issue where it's showing that if you're going to use the zip cap, you must have it flush into the ground, has to be into the ground. Every manufacturer that makes these types of tie downs in their installation manual, that's what it's going to tell you. It must be done. Okay. Again, the reason why is because that's not going to hold. Okay. You know, you and I, we all know that the reason that these anchors are made is because they're engineered to withstand pressure of a wind event that may come through and try to push that home off of its foundation. Okay, so all the engineering that these companies have done basically are to meet those requirements. Okay, you and I don't have to worry about those requirements because we're not the ones that are building, you know, we're not building these products. So we don't have to worry that, you know, they meet a certain requirement. When we buy them, they've already been engineered and manufactured so that they do meet these minimums. Okay, you know, the 3150 working load. You know, we just want to make sure that we don't get ourselves ramped up into how they work or why they work, because we know they do, because they've been engineered and stamped by an engineer, backing up that they will work. So what we want to focus on is that we install them exactly the way they tell us to install them. Okay. So that's some of the pictures on the anchoring that I want to show you that I'm seeing out into the field. You know, I don't see these pictures that I'm showing you today everywhere. I don't see them all the time. Okay, if that was the case, we'd probably be having a little bit different of a discussion. It probably wouldn't be a CE class. Okay, we would be handling this in a completely different situation. Okay, so just in closing with the anchoring, just make sure that you follow the instructions of the manual, the installation manual that comes with the product. Okay, again, don't get worked up on how they work. You know, look, I mean, I'm sure most of you know that the total capacity is, you know, the 4725, and the working capacity is the 37,150. So I just want to make sure that what we're focusing on, we're just following the instruction manuals, okay? And as long as you do that and you install it to their standards, anything that happens after that, everybody's going to be protected. You're going to ensure yourself that if a problem ever comes up, you know you did the job the right way, and you can feel comfortable with knowing that, and also walking away from an issue because you did do it the right way, and whatever issue came up had to come from somewhere else, not the way you dealt with it or the way you installed the product. All right, just a few more. Again, the zip cap, not all the way flush to the ground, too much space there. You know, I'm not going to go over everything we already obviously went over, but just some more pictures showing these situations that I see. Okay, so look, like one thing I wanted to point out, the last zip cap that we just looked at, I'll go back real quick. As you can see, the one on the far right, that's a zip cap anchor with a vapor barrier. And then the first picture on the continued side here, as you can see on this picture, that's no vapor barrier. So it's two different homes, two different sites. You know, I'm not going to just take one home and just pick it apart. I mean, I will, and it needs to be fixed, but I'm just letting you know that sometimes I think when I tell you guys, hey, this is what I'm seeing in the field, maybe I went to one house and found all these problems and that's where all my pictures are coming from. I'm just pointing out, I'm just showing you pictures from different sites And that's why I'm giving this presentation today. If it was just one home and I never seen it again, this presentation would be a lot simpler and we talk about different things, but it's not. It's different sites. It's over the, it's everywhere in Ohio that I'm seeing these things, and that's why we're talking about it in this presentation today. Another zip cap, obviously different home, different site. Another one that's above ground. Now, I understand with the gravel, the gravel probably is going to pose an issue when you're putting that zip cap into the ground. Personally, I think you're all probably saying this to yourself. We should probably, that person, whoever they may be, probably should have put the zip cap in first and then put the gravel in there. Okay. I don't know if they did it. To me, it looked like they put the gravel in and then they try to put the zip cap anchor in. Okay. Should have been the other way around. But again, outside of the ground, not installed correctly. Again, if something happened to that home, then whoever installed that product will be held accountable for whatever happens from that scenario. Again, another zip cap. Now the last two pictures probably are from the same home. You can see that the vinyl skirting is vented all the way around, gravel, in the same kind of scenario, doesn't look much different than the other one. But again, whoever put these anchors in on the four corners, all four of them are going to be like these last two that I've shown you. Okay. I guess it would be a little bit more frustrating if you went to a house and seen one corner anchor done completely 100% the right way or to the installation instructions, and then you walked around and seen the three other ones not the same way or done to the instruction manual. That would be frustrating because you'd be like, well, wait a minute. You did the one completely the right way. Why are the other three not? Okay. We would have probably an answer for that, and I'm sure you're thinking about that, but I very, very seldom see something like that where I see something perfect. And when I say perfect, to code and to the instruction manual of the manufacturer, and other ones not. Now, I'm not going to say I've never been to a house and seen anchors and let's say they just did the four corners and seen three of them perfect and one of them not, and there was a reason. Okay. That happens. We all know that happens. Okay. But whatever that reason is, what's the problem? Is it something that you can call me or you can call your inspector and say, hey, I've got one anchor that's giving me a problem. Here's what's going on. Is there any way around it? Whatever it may be, always discuss those things with your inspector, and they can try to help you find out either how you can get around whatever that problem is or a better way to do it. Okay, so let's say, for instance, we're looking at three zip cap pictures here, and let's say all three corner anchors, the zip caps, they were perfect. And let's say we got to the back right-hand corner of the home, that one's not. Well, let's say just a regular style anchor, like we seen earlier, without the zip cap and with the stabilizing plate, let's say it would work just fine. Whatever problem with the zip cap, you can't get it flush into the ground, but you could get it with the other anchor with the stabilizing plate. Then there's no law that says you can't do that. Okay. We want to make sure that when you put the anchors in, that they meet the requirements. Okay. And the manufacturer is going to make sure, that they meet the 3150, or the 4725. So as long as you're using the right anchor, that it's listed to be used with manufactured housing, then you're going to be fine. So it's always good that if you do have a problem with something and you can't see your way and you've thought about it 100 different times, call your inspector, call me, we'll try to get through whatever the problem may be. Okay. So that's the issue with the anchors. Make sure if you do have any questions about the anchoring systems or anything that I've spoke about here today, make sure you get those questions into us. Okay, another one on the anchoring. You can see the stabilizing plate. You know, it's out of the ground. It's not installed correctly. The head of the anchor is obviously a lot further out of the ground, and you know, you get to the point where when you see something like this, you just think to yourself, well, how did we get, you know, you try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and ask yourself, how did we get to this point right here, where you got the right material, you got the right product. Okay, I've seen a lot of them without stabilizer plates. So he's got the stabilizing plate, but yet the stabilizing plate's not into the ground to code or to the installation manual, and the anchor is not flush with the ground with the stabilizing plate. So, you know, it's like you used the right product, you went as far as doing all that work, and I don't know, I can't put an exact time on it, but let's say it's 5 more minutes of work, if that, to get the stabilizing plate all the way where it needs to be and get the anchor head where it needs to be. Okay, I get kind of befuddled, okay, dumbfounded, I guess, a little bit of why I have seen these types of issues in the field, like this picture that we're looking at right now. Okay, it confuses me, and it probably confuses you as well. Okay, another one, and I'm glad I took this picture. As you can tell on this anchoring, you know, it's into the runner. Okay, everything as far as that was concerned was okay. The amount of turns was okay. The biggest problem that we're seeing on this, okay, and there's a couple of issues, but the biggest one I want to point out more than anything is, because some of the other issues I see on here we've already talked about, but the biggest issue on this picture that I want to bring to your attention, and you probably already see it, which is the pigtail. We call them pigtails, which you can see the strap, how big the pigtail they left. You know, it's going halfway up the I-beam there. You can see where it ends there. We want to make sure, look, you can't have any pigtails. See, that's another thing. I had somebody ask me once in a class, you know, I found a home. I can't obviously remember where it was at. Doesn't matter. It's not important. But I found a home where all 4 corner anchors had pigtails, but they were only like 2 inches long. And I had somebody ask me, you know, is that an issue? You know, because most pigtails that you do see, maybe not this quite this extravagant and this long, but most of them you see are, you know, quite long. And somebody asked me in the class when I showed these little 2-inch small pigtails, they asked me if that's an issue, because most of the ones that they've ever seen were the long ones like this. And I explained to them, absolutely. There literally is 0 difference, okay? The slippage is going to happen because there's a pigtail at all. Doesn't matter how long it is or how short it is. You know, what matters is that it's even there. So I just want to make sure, you know, that you understand that any pigtail is going to be a failure, okay? Not only to a failure, not only to a possible event, okay, a wind event or whatever to the home, but also a failure to the installation manual that came with the product. Okay, so obviously the biggest part of that failure that we never want is a failure to the home, okay? Because obviously that brings a lot more into the situation. So we just want to make sure that we're looking out for the pigtails. No pigtails, 2 inches, 12 inches, 30 inches, like this one here. Well, let's see, you got 2 8-inch plus 16. You got probably about 24-inch pigtail on this one. So 2 inches, 24 inches, doesn't matter, can't have the pigtails, okay? Just make sure that we're looking out for those and that those aren't happening. Okay, the next part we're going to speak about is the ABS pads. We want to make sure that when we use ABS pads, that we are installing them, just like the anchors, that we're installing them to the installation manual, okay? Now, one of the things I wanted to point out, and I usually don't do this when we're doing a live presentation, but because we are doing this by video, I want to make sure that everybody understands, kind of how this all works when it comes to the Ohio standards, installation standards, or code, however you want to word that, okay? In Ohio, our installation standards are only for used homes, okay? We all understand that. When it comes to a new home, everything has to be set up to the installation manual that came with the home, or it has to be set up to an engineer's specification. Okay, we got to tell you that, but let's be honest. In all the years that I've been here at the state, I think I've only had one engineer send me a setup plan or a blocking diagram or footers. And to be quite honest with you, I had to call this engineer and I had to tell him I have to accept what he's saying, but I'm going to have to put my foot down and not allow what this homeowner was going to do with the setup of their home. It was a double wide, and this engineer actually took the time, they were probably friends, and they took the time to do a diagram, an engineered drawing of the foundation of this home for this double wide. So he emails it to me. I look at it and can't remember exactly the size of the home, but this engineer had designed for piers to be like, I want to say they were like 15 to 18 feet apart. And when I looked at his drawing and I seen the type of footers he was using, I had to call him. I had to say, look, I'm not an engineer. I'm not going to argue engineering points to you because I am not a certified registered engineer, but I've never seen anybody ever write up a diagram or an engineered drawing for piers set that far from each other. So anyway, long story short, that's the difference between the used and new homes. Used homes, you follow the 4781-6. That is the Ohio standards for installation. If it's a new home, you have to follow the installation manual, or an engineered drawing can be for a used home, either one, okay? Those are the 3 guidelines and standards that we have to follow. Now, when it comes to ABS pads, it's a footing, okay? In our code, in the Ohio installation manual, or instructions, I should say, if you look under our code, which is 4781-6-03.3, and you go under L, okay, the alphabet, the letter L, underneath of that, you will see the section for footings, okay? And it basically tells you what is allowed in the state of Ohio when it comes to used homes. Okay, it talks about 4-inch nominal precast concrete. Okay, the special word in that is precast. Okay, not poured in place, but precast. Yes, you can run down to Home Depot and you can find yourself 18 by 18 inch, 4-inch C90 block that's precast and use them as footers. You can sit them on top of the ground. You could cut out, sit them in the ground, but they were absolutely 100% approved footings for the state of Ohio. Okay. The other one is the pour in place, which is obviously that and ABS pads, the two most used footings in the state of Ohio. So if you're going to do pour in place footings, we all know that it has to be 6-inch minimum in the concrete, and it's got to be at least 3,000 PSI. Okay. Now, the 6-inch poured in place can be footers, footer pads, like an ABS pad, or it can be runners. It could be cross runners, cross ribbons, however you want to say it, or it can be a slab. Okay. Obviously, a slab is, you know, it's just a different type of footing, but it's probably the best footing. Not that I'm giving credence over one footing to the other, but when you use a slab and you're basically covering the entire footprint of that home, it is really the best way to secure everything and make that home. It's not going to make it safer. It's easier to make it safe. Okay, it's just easier to work with, easier to deal with. Anyway, under that code 4781-6-03.3 and the letter L, you get to some subsections, and one of the subsections is engineered plastic composite footing pads. Okay, real quick, I'm just going to read this to you. Engineered plastic composite footing pads shall be permitted if used in accordance with the manufacturer installation instructions and/or specification sheet of the specific engineered plastic composite pad being used. Okay. The reason I'm telling you that is simple. In the state of Ohio, for used homes, under our installation instructions, ABS pads are allowed. You are allowed to use ABS pads. All we ask you is that when you use ABS pads, that you install them 100% to the manufacturer's instruction manual. Okay. However they tell you to install them is how you have to install them. We, at the state, who oversees and regulates the code, does not tell you how to install ABS pads. All we tell you is that you can use ABS pads. Okay. Once you decide to use ABS pads, you must install them to the manufacturer's instructions. If you're using Polyvoc, make sure you use Polyvoc's instructions. If you use an Oliver, you make sure you use an Oliver's instructions. Okay? Number one, that's what I just want to make sure I get that across to you as well as I can. Okay? Because in some of these pictures, it'll all come in to focus of why I was kind of strong about all that. Okay, first ABS pad we see, obviously it's underneath a vapor barrier. It has a pier on it, as you can see. The biggest number one issue that I'm seeing with ABS pads now is a lot of installers want to set the ABS pads on gravel. Okay. The problem with the gravel is if it's not the type of gravel that interlocks and works with each other and provides a one complete solid base, then we're getting issues. Okay. Now, I think that I'm seeing a lot of 57 gravel. All right. When I see number 57 gravel, and I know that it's not interlocking and forming a base the way it should, you're getting issues where the bottom of the pad that's supposed to be on the ground is not making full contact with the ground. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to read what a little part of the instructions that actually comes with ABS pads. And this doesn't matter who the manufacturer is. This is all going to be their verbiage when it comes to them. Okay, all pads are to be installed flat side down and the rib side up. Okay, which this ABS pad is. The ground under the pads should be leveled as smooth as possible with all vegetation and debris removed. Pads are to be placed on evenly compacted soil at or below the frost line or otherwise protected from the effects of frost. Okay. So the one section of that I want to make sure everybody understands, pads are to be placed evenly on compacted soil. Okay. They don't say gravel in their instructions. They say evenly on compacted soil. The issue that I am seeing a lot is what you can see in this picture, and I'll have some pictures that show it a lot more. Okay, you'll be able to see it a lot closer up, so to speak. But on this corner, as you can see, the first corner your eyes come to, there is a gap between that corner. Now, how far back it goes? A few inches. Okay. But now you have a pad that is not evenly, okay, on compacted soil or compacted crushed stone or whatever. It doesn't have to be soil. Okay. The ABS pad manufacturer will tell you that it does not have to be on soil, on the ground, but it must be evenly dispersed over that. Okay. So if you have the entire pad except for 20% of one corner is not touching, that pad is engineered to disperse the weight of that pier and the load that it carries over the entire pad. So obviously, if you got 20% of a pad that's not touching evenly on whatever underneath of it, stone, soil, whatever, there's going to be potential for an issue. Okay. So here's the issue. If a homeowner comes out and let's say it's springtime and they're putting Christmas decoration in these tubs underneath their home. That's where they want to store it. And the homeowner looks under there and sees his ABS pad is broken, literally broken off. Their first question is like, oh, well, is that a big issue? Okay, to them, it probably will be a big issue. To us, it absolutely is a big issue. But to most homeowners, laymen, so to speak, just because they don't know everything that we do, they would probably think, oh, that's got to be an issue. So they're going to call up and say, hey, I've got an issue. They're going to call us here at the state. I'm going to come out and take a look at it. I'm going to notice that this is what I found. And of course, I have to write it up as the installation of the pad was not installed to the manufacturer's standards. Okay, so now this homeowner is afforded and has the right, because the home went through an installation, went through an inspection, a seal was placed in the house as a final inspection, but the code in which all that was supposed to be predicated on was not met. Therefore, this pad would have to be removed, reinstalled, and installed the correct way. Okay. Nobody wants to go back out and do that work afterwards. All this should always be done before, because going out afterwards is nothing but a headache to everybody. The homeowner, the installer, the inspector, and the state. Everybody involved, it's a headache to them. Okay. The number one thing I want to get out of, make sure that you understand that I am trying to portray when it comes to ABS pads, is that we don't want to come back out to these homes because pads have failed. And I'm telling you, we have. And that's what we're trying to avoid. Not just because I don't want to go out to them. I want to avoid it because I don't want you to have to go back out to them. And I don't want you to have to spend more money and spend more time. Okay. That's number one overall. Okay, another picture shows a gap, as you can see. So if you look at the block, and that right side of the block, the very right side of that block, if you go about 2 inches further to your right and down, you can see where there's a gap. Again, it's not touching. It's not evenly dispersed over the gravel. Okay, so I just want to make sure that you understand everything I just told you. I want to show you these pictures so you understand there's a reason why I'm talking to you about this. Okay, I'm not just doing this to have something to talk about or, you know, rattle anybody's cage. I'm doing this because I want us to all do these things the right way so that none of us has to go back out and get involved into a situation where that now there's a dispute or a violation to Ohio standards. Okay. Here's a picture here. You can see my hand. I don't know how easy it is to tell, but my hand is completely underneath of the ABS pad. Okay. I couldn't stick my entire hand up underneath there because it was touching the ABS pad with the gravel, but that part, my pinky and my index finger, or not index finger, ring finger, and part of my middle finger is underneath the ABS pad. Okay, so I'm basically just trying to show you that, you know, this is an issue, and I'm seeing it in a lot of areas, It is the #1 issue in the state of Ohio is ABS pads, bar none. Nothing's even close. ABS pads are not being installed to the installation instructions of the manufacturer. I don't like it. It should scare all of us because there's going to be problems down the road. Okay. All right, now that we've talked about ABS pads, we've all got that, you know, on the front burner, in our mind, focus on it, make sure that we understand it. Okay, now we want to talk about grading. I'll tie this all into even the ABS pads, okay? The reason why we use ABS pads in the state of Ohio like we do is because of grading, okay? The biggest reason that we use ABS pads in this state the way we do is because the engineering study that we did, I want to say now it's been, it's probably been 15 years ago or more. I don't have the exact date, but anyway, the state of Ohio, not the actual government of the state of Ohio, the OMHA, the Ohio Manufactured Homes Association, who's putting on this class, actually did a engineering study, and they wanted to see how ABS pads worked. And this is back when ABS pads were kind of getting off the ground. And then, look, everybody wants to use them. Well, I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people do, especially homeowners, because if you come to a homeowner and say, hey, we can put it on this footing and set your home up, and it's going to cost X, or we can do a full slab under there and it's going to cost Y, and X and Y is about, you know, $20,000 difference, you know. Obviously, if they got 20,000, maybe they'll do it. But a lot of people are like, hey, are those things, do they work? Are they good? And you say, yeah, they work. You know, they're engineered. They're engineered just like a concrete footing is. They meet all the standards. They're probably going to say, hey, I'll take the ABS pads. I'll take that money, you know, put it into something else. Well, when we did the engineering study, the OMHA did the engineering study. They wanted to find out how they perform, okay? And they wanted to see how they performed over a couple of year period because they wanted to go through a couple of winters, you know. Obviously, that's where you get your frost heave, and they wanted to see how they would react. So they did 2 sites in northern Ohio up around the Cleveland area, 2 sites in central Ohio around Circleville, which is just south of Columbus, and a couple of sites in Cincinnati. Okay, so we got the state covered. We're at the top or the north, we're in the central, and we're in the southern. So we did this study for a couple of years, and what we found out is the ABS pads, when they're installed correctly, using all the insulative properties that go with a frost-free foundation, reacted or acted the same way as concrete would, be it runners, pier pads, slabs. And because of that engineering study, we were able to put out, if you install your ABS pads correctly and you meet all the insulative values with setting them up, then you're going to be completely fine. And that's why we do use ABS pads in the state of Ohio like we do. And I think we're pretty much the most liberal state in Ohio or in the country when it comes to ABS pads, which I think is a good thing. Maybe most of you do too. Some of you may not agree with that, but I think it's a good thing because our folks are affordable housing people, and we want to make sure that we have a place for them to live. And the more we can help them obtain affordable housing and keep it affordable with the installation of it, the better off we all are, because we're all here for a reason. We love our industry. We know why it's here. We want to see it succeed and thrive. And that was the intention of this study, is to make sure we can keep it affordable. Okay. Well, one of the insulated values for the ABS pads and the frost-free foundation, and to me the most important, is the grading. Okay, grading, basically what grading means is you're not letting water get up underneath the home. Okay, so as you can see, you have a house here that's sitting on a elevated footing or grading, where you can see the arrows where you're getting the 1/2 inch per foot for 10 feet. So basically you're getting enough slope away from the home where water is not going to go back underneath the home and cause an issue to the footings or the moisture underneath the home. Okay, so grading is number one. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, and I think most people that have been in to the installation like I have been all these years would agree that grading is the number one issue when it comes to setting any home. Okay, so make sure when you're setting your home and you're using ABS pads, or it doesn't matter what footing you're using, you have to meet these requirements when it comes to grading, which is the 1/2 inch per foot for 10 feet. Okay, so once you get that 5 inches of fall from each side of the home, you know, and you can feel comfortable knowing that water is not going to go back uphill and get up underneath the home and cause any type of devastation to your footings or to the home itself. Okay, that's how important grading is. Make sure you get your 1/2 inch per foot for 10 feet slope away from the home. Here's a picture that I took down in southern Ohio. If I remember right, it's right near Pike County and Adams County. Again, like I said at the beginning of this presentation, before we started the slides about the pictures, you can't smell them, you can't stand on them. So you don't get the complete 100% gist of everything, but rest assured that you can see the water and how there's a swale there where it's puddled up. Where that, excuse me, where that swale is with that water, if you go back from there, the edge of that, and to where the piers are at underneath that home, I don't know exactly what the height difference was, how much fall was from there to there, but it was a lot more than 5 inches over the 10 feet. It's a perfect grading job that this person did on this home. Okay, all the water was out from underneath the home. That's what we want to make sure of. Here's another one. Excuse me. You might not be able to tell. I can tell. Hopefully you can too. But you can see these cross runners, cross ribbons, whatever you want to call them. You could tell the grading from the front and the side. It's the same way on the other side and in the back. I mean, perfect. Absolute perfect lot for this home to go on right here. I mean, perfect. You couldn't ask for anything more. It would take something very unusual on that lot for water to get back up underneath the home that's going to sit there. Okay. Perfect grading right there. All right, some pictures of obviously water underneath homes where the grading was not done properly. As you can tell on this picture, you can see the rust. Now, I also know rust can get under these I-beams and water hasn't been just sitting underneath the home. I understand that can happen. Excuse me, but in this case, that's what's happened here. Here's a home where you can see the watermark and line up the block on the pier. You can also see where the little puddle of water when we dug some of the gravel out. That's where water is getting trapped underneath the home. That is what we don't want. The number one enemy of any installation of any manufactured home is that right there. Plumbing and drainage systems. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. The number one thing that I've seen and have seen and probably will see on the plumbing and the drainage system is the mixing of the ABS and the PVC. Okay, there is no, and trust me, I know that there's product out there that they say that will glue PVC and ABS. I'm telling you, in the state of Ohio, we will not allow any glue if you're going from ABS to PVC. Okay, and as you can see in this picture, you can see part of the drain, and you can see one coupler there. It's even PVC on the ABS drain. There's some that you can barely see. It's on the going towards the back side of the house. But that's an issue that I want to make sure I bring up to everybody. You cannot use the ABS and the PVC. Protection from effects of frost heave. Obviously, we all know most of our houses, manufactured homes in the state of Ohio, are set at grade. The reason we set them at grade, I've already mentioned the engineering study that we did, which allows us to do that because we've spent so much time and effort in finding out what the effects of frost heave can have under different circumstances. Okay, what we want to discuss here is the protection from those effects of frost heave. Manufactured homes installed in Ohio must use one of the following methods to be protected from the effects of frost heave. Conventional footings placed below the frost line depth. Okay, very simple. If you're using, well, you can use ABS pads, you can use poured in place concrete. If you go down, now remember, the state of Ohio is different. Cleveland's frost depth is different than Columbus, and Columbus and Cleveland's obviously different than Portsmouth or Cincinnati or Marietta. Okay, so you always have to find your local frost depth. You're always going to be able to find that at your local authorities in the county on which you're setting the home. They can give you that information. Okay, so conventional footings placed below the frost line depth. So let's say line is 36 inches. You don't want to deal with frost heave. You don't want to deal with anything at grade. You want to be 100% protected. Then you pour down, you auger out your hole. Let's say you're doing concrete pier pads. You auger out your hole. You go down to 36 inches. You pour that entire hole full of concrete, at least 3,000 PSI. you go all the way down through there where every pier is going to set with that type of footing, everything's going to be fine. You're not going to get any frost heave, no issue as far as any type of heaving is going to occur on that type of footing, okay? Still have to do your grading, right? You still can't let water get up from underneath the home because you still have moisture problems that you're going to get inside the home. But when it comes to footings, if you go down to the actual frost depth footing, you're completely protected, 100%. Concrete slabs, a monolithic slab is treated the same way as a conventional footing that's been placed below the frost line, okay? I'm just letting you know that now. So if a homeowner comes up to you and says, I want you to install this home on my lot, and obviously one of the first questions you're going to ask is, what type of footings do you want? And that person says, look, I'm going to pour a slab. I've got a 28 by 60 double wide coming in, and I'm going to have a 26 and a half by 52 feet slab underneath the home. No different than if they were actually going all the way down the frost depth. It's going to be considered the same type of footing. Insulated foundations, okay? Insulated foundations, basically, the home has been insulated from the effects of frost heave. Number one way, and I've already discussed this with you, for that insulated is to have the grading completely done properly, 100%. If you get the water out from underneath the home, you can't have frost heave, okay? Three things make up frost heave. The soil, excuse me, the saturation has to be at least 80% of the soil, and then you have to have freezing temperatures, okay? Well, we live in Ohio. We cannot stop at all. Wish we could, but we cannot stop the freezing temperatures. Can't do anything about the soil either. Soil is the soil, it's the earth. The part that we can stop is the 80% saturation of the soil. How do you stop the soil from getting 80% saturated? You just make sure there's no water getting underneath the home, right? Make sure no water gets underneath that home. The soil underneath that home cannot get saturated, therefore it cannot freeze, therefore it cannot heave. Concrete slabs and insulated foundations may be permitted above the frost line if the following are true. All site-specific conditions are considered. Must be designed by a registered Ohio professional engineer, architect that is in accordance with anchorage requirements of the OAC 4781-6-03.4, acceptable engineering practice to prevent the effects of frost heave, or the ASCE SEI 32-01. And of course, the acceptable engineering practice to prevent the effects of frost heave, excuse me, is what we use mainly in the state of Ohio. Skirting and vapor barriers. We're going to talk about skirting and vapor barriers. One of the things that I think that is a confusion when it comes to vapor barriers is when to use it and when not to use it, okay? It's very simple. Vapor barrier is predicated on the amount of ventilation that's underneath the home, okay? I'll try to find it here as I'm talking to you so that we can all understand that it gives you, so it says here under 4781-6-03, and we're looking under D as in David. Proper installation. Vapor barrier is basically going to be tied into the ventilation, okay? The easiest way, excuse me, that we have instructed everyone that has a installer's license on how to understand that, and I'll show you some of this coming up, is with the ventilation. So how do you get ventilation? Well, ventilation either comes through your vented skirting or your vents that you put in the skirting, okay? So here's some skirting requirements. Skirting is not required when footers are placed below the frost line, okay? Conventional footings, concrete pads, runners, cross ribbons or runners, and ABS pads. So if you go down 36 inches and that's your frost depth, then skirting is actually not required on any home to pass a final inspection. Okay. The other one is concrete slabs. Again, earlier I told you that slabs are going to act as footers that are to frost depth. They're going to act the same way. Okay. Skirting and venting is required if you're above the frost line, meaning at grade footings, with any of the type of footings: concrete, runners, ribbons, cross ribbons, ABS pads. Okay. So skirting and venting is required when you are at grade on your footings. Vapor barrier requirements. Vapor barrier is not required when skirting is not used. When the space under the home is enclosed with vented, perforated skirting or other perforated material. Okay, so basically what we're saying there is if you have vented skirting all the way around the home, each panel, you're getting the maximum amount of ventilation under that home. Therefore, vapor barrier is not required. Vapor barrier is required when the space under the home is enclosed with solid skirting or other solid materials. Now, if you use solid skirting, now we all know, I hope you know, you cannot use solid skirting all the way around a manufactured home. You have to at least have a minimum amount of ventilation. That minimum amount of ventilation is going to be what we use, and to be very practical about it, instead of getting into the numbers, the 1,500 square feet or 150 square foot, that can really start to bog you down. The easiest way to understand it: solid skirting with the 4 corner vents, okay? 4 corner vents on solid skirting, that's a minimum amount of ventilation, therefore you have to have vapor barrier. If you have the maximum amount of ventilation, which obviously if you're at grade or at frost depth and you have no skirting at all, you are at the most maximum ventilation you can have, so you don't need vapor barrier. But if you use skirting all the way around the home, you are using or getting the maximum amount of ventilation underneath the home. Therefore, skirting is not, or vapor barrier is not required. Again, I don't want to confuse anybody. Vented skirting all the way around the home, do not have to use vapor barrier. Solid skirting with 4 corner vents, you have to use vapor barrier. If you have any questions on that part, you make sure, you get, again, just get it to the appropriate person. They will inform you who that is. They'll make sure that you get that to us, get it to us, and we'll make sure that we get you the answers that you need. Here you will see a couple of links. If you want to write them down, I'll leave it up there for a couple of minutes. That way you can see it and have time to write it down. One of them is our website, which has all kinds of information on it. So make sure you use that as a tool. The other link that you see there is actually my email. It's Gary.Whitaker, WHITAKER @com.state.oh.us. If you send an email to me at that address, 100% I will get back with you. Okay. whatever it may be. If you need me for anything, any help, any question, you send me an email at that email address right there. 100%, I will get back with you. Okay, everyone, that was a slideshow. I hope you all enjoyed it. I just want to make sure that everybody understands, again, that it's not, I don't go out looking for issues or problems. In a perfect world, obviously, I wouldn't find them, and that would be great. But it's not a perfect world, and I do find these issues and I find these problems. And I just think, it's educational. It really does, when I find something like we went over the ABS pads, when I find that, they're not quite done to the installation manual that come with it, that it gives me an opportunity, to get with the installer, to get with the inspector and have that conversation. I know we meet here periodically for the CE classes, and this is supposed to be a refresher, but, this is something that we do every day, all of us, okay? So sometimes waiting 3 or 4 months to hear something, isn't always, great or conducive, because, that's a pretty big gap in time. You may have sat 10 homes in between, those CE classes, especially if you're an installer and you're only coming every 2 years. That's a lot of homes in between, hearing someone like me talk to you about the issues that we're seeing, and a refresher on, what the Ohio standards are, or, on new home, what the instruction manuals would say. So I think it's a good thing that we go over the slides like we did. We talk about it. We all understand what's really important. If the things that we spoke about on the slideshow, the ABS pads, the ventilation, the anchoring, if all those issues get better, or we never have a problem with those, then everything else is going to be a lot easier, okay? Because some of the issues that we spoke about is some very, big issues that if they're wrong, then you're talking about a domino effect, okay? Like when we talked about the anchors. If you get a wind event and the anchor is not supporting the home the way it should, or holding the home the way it should, then if that home shifts, then now, your piers are going to have an opportunity, to fail, because now the weight bearing on those piers aren't supported the way they're supposed to be supported. So, it's a domino effect. I mean, if one thing goes wrong, then probably something else is going to go wrong, and then another thing is going to go wrong. We don't want that, obviously. We don't want it to get out of whack like that. So little things matter, right? If we start and we focus on the little things, then we know the big things are going to be covered, okay? So I think the slideshow is really good. I think it helps everybody, visualize and see things that I've seen. And that way you can see them also, and know that, hey, Gary is seeing these things out in the field. I don't feel like I make those mistakes or have those issues, but, I'll make sure I walk around after I lay my ABS pads down, make sure that it's in contact 100%, the pad with the ground. Make sure all anchors are flush into the ground. Make sure stabilizing plates are used, okay? Just the little things. Like I said, the little things will lead to the big things being right. If the little things are wrong, then the big things are going to turn up wrong. It's just the domino effect that we don't want to see. So I want to take this point to say thank you. I appreciate all you guys, all the hard work that you do, 100%. The installers are, my opinion, the most important people in our entire industry, okay? So I want to thank you. If you have any questions, again, make sure you get them in. and we 100% will get those answers back to you. Hope everyone has a great day, a great end of the year, a great holiday season. And if you have any questions, again, get those questions in and we'll get them answered. Thank you very much.